This is Alexandra Palace, perhaps best known in recent decades as the home of darts or snooker tournaments. For much of the 20th century, it hosted a whole range of news and entertainment programmes from the British Broadcasting Corporation. In this series, I've been building it out of Lego. Last time we completed the central section of the model, the palace's Great Hall, and now we're moving on to the East Wing. The base of this section starts much the same as the West Wing, but will quickly diverge. While this section of the palace started life as another open courtyard with a colonnade, it became the site of the BBC's television studios. The much more utilitarian, even industrial construction contrasts starkly with the more elegant Italian-style architecture surrounding it. Most of the columns and arches are still visible, but filled in with brick walls, boarded-up windows, and the necessary infrastructure for operating television studio lighting and high-power transmitters. Working up from ground level as before, one of the first details to put in is this ramp leading up to the entrance to the old transmitter hall. With minimal space to work in at the scale, this is represented by a single tile piece, angled using one of the old-style Lego hinges. More modern Lego uses clips and bars to act as hinges, which are more durable, but they are slightly less compact. The old-style hinge is exactly what I needed to fit under the ramp here. They're no longer manufactured, but I still have quite a few of them from my childhood Lego collection. These older elements are also in the older, slightly browner shade of grey plastic no longer used by Lego, but a mix of different shades here just adds to the effect that this is a more well-worn part of the building. You can see there's much more structure on the ground floor here than there was in the West Colonnade. I built up the infilled sections with bricks and added some ground floor windows using transparent tiles. Most of the other rear sections of the colonnade here that aren't already covered up by some of the brick structure are still filled in. Most of the columns at the front of the building are still intact though, so as with the West Colonnade, I built these up using many small tiles to hint at the horizontal lines that run through the brickwork across the whole length of the building. The door here, previously the entrance for bringing large scenery pieces into the television studios, and in modern times better known as the entrance to Ali Pali's ice rink, is created the same way as the corresponding door on the West Wing, using transparent plates to build up the glass. The connection point to the central section was something I didn't fully work out in the digital design, so instead I'm referring to what I built for the corresponding connection on the West Wing, which should be an exact mirror. As I've been building the palace from left to right, the ground floor of this section is actually the first point that provides a clue as to the scale of the real building. Anyone not familiar with the palace itself might interpret the model so far as being at standard Lego minifigure scale, but what I've been referring to so far as the lower and upper floors are actually each about twice the height of a single story in a common home or office building. The ground floor room here, which looks like it's half height, is actually a normal one-story building, sitting within the double height colonnade. It's topped with a flat roof and some shorter columns to fill the remaining gap, with a ladder and gangway running above it, built by clipping together a few ladder pieces. The base of the upper floor uses a mix of tiles to represent some of the brickwork and larger bricks to provide some structure for the sections that are not infilled. These have the same metal canopy as the West Colonnade, represented by these fluted bricks. The signs and posters at the front of the building, which tend to get redesigned and replaced every few years, are just represented by plain dark blue tiles for simplicity and to keep the visuals of the model clean. The upper floor, just as in the West Wing, starts with a layer of plates, but just as with the ground floor here, it's then a mix of infilled sections where I put in plates and jumper plates to build on, and open sections covered with tiles along with fence pieces at the front. The most built-up parts of this floor contained the old television studios. There are a number of more industrial details here, small blacked-out windows built using transparent black plates with black bricks behind them, vents represented with half-height grill-shaped bricks, and extractor fan outlets represented by Technic pins. The tower here is built exactly the same way as the West Colonnade, with pillars hanging off a supporting beam across the top. Between the two television studios is a balcony that looks a bit like the more open West Colonnade, but with the arches at the back all filled in. The second television studio starts with similar industrial details to the first, then continues the other side of the second tower with a series of slightly larger windows, where I'm using a mix of transparent bricks and tiles to represent the separate panes of glass. There are also some larger outlet vents built using grille tile pieces. At the end of this section is an angled wall, which I built up using white slope pieces, with a single grey slope piece representing a door, then attached the whole assembly to the model sideways. In front of this wall is one of my favourite small details of the model, a spiral staircase leading to a door on the upper level. I built this using a series of 1x1 plates with clips, carefully arranged around a central bar. The roof is built much the same as the west colonnade, with the same approach for the arches wherever they're still visible. The decorative chimney stacks as found on the west colonnade aren't present here, having been knocked down at some point, presumably when the TV studios were built, if not before, with only a rather more stunted stack remaining, making for a slightly simpler build. Finally, I just needed to build the facade and top of the tower that connects this section to the main central section of the model. This uses Technic pins on the front of the building and regular stud connections at the top to hold the sections together. Again, this is an exact mirror of the corresponding connection between the west colonnade and the Great Hall, so I used that as a reference rather than just relying on the digital design. That completes the transmitter hall and television studios, leaving only one section of the model remaining, the East Tower. Again, this is not just a mirror of the West Tower, but a significantly different structure, which jams a 20th century office building into the classically inspired design of the palace, resulting in some unusual angles and interfaces between the different architectural styles. This required some of the most unorthodox and challenging building techniques used in the model so far, as we'll see in the final episode. Until then, thank you for watching and happy building.